Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Mystery Red Reads. I'm your host, Mystery Red. This is a trigger warning. This story covers material that may be upsetting to some viewers and readers. This is my disclaimer. This beta read in concrete is at the author's request. This video is for learning purposes. Today we're doing a beta read in concrete, and we are looking at a chapter from a memoir. We are looking at, now, I have to think about this for a second because our numbers are slightly off. This might be 10. I think this is still 10. I had done a read for chapter 8, but it said chapter 9. Turned out I think it was chapter 8, and then I was back on track with 9. So I think this really is chapter 10, which today we are reading for No-Ant-5039, who I call Ant. So you will hear me refer to them as Ant throughout the read. We are going to dive right in. I will include links to my other reads for Ant in the description. I have read 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this is 10. And 4 was a private read, and I did not read chapter 2. So now you're up to speed. Here we go. Chapter 10, The Father of My Children. The disconnect hangs heavy like the fatigue of COVID and the metallic taste its antivirals leave in your mouth. We mostly occupy separate spaces, a strategy to avoid the awkwardness of having nothing to say to each other. There it is. This awareness pulls warm and heavy behind my eyes. Ooh, I'm going to compliment that. I love that. Very nice way to say there's tears in your eyes. I love it. Good job. All right, keeping going. Maybe it's not that we have nothing to say, but that we are scared, hurt by a history of being misheard. And we both know we can't unhear. Last Friday, overwhelmed, you approached me for help, but it was hard to recognize through the sting of implications and judgmental comparisons. The miserable patterns that orbit our relationship appeared closer. Maybe it was the meteor shower. Mercury was in retrograde. It's the same argument on repeat. Who contributes what, how I manage my time, and the sand from the sandbox. The nuances of stringing together words is reminiscent of young children, hot in the face, trying to express thoughts. Or like the game of telephone, whispering the message around the circle from ear to ear. Can you help is heard as, you don't do enough. And I sacrifice comes out as, I'm unhappy. I should have known this was coming. The patterns of pulling away without withholding affection and the flatness in your voice. A few nights before, I brought watermelon out for the kids. You were at the table, caught up in conversation with our neighbor. The discussion sounded deeply reflective, thoughtful. As I typed, the small squares of the keyboard morph, blurring together behind the obstruction of my tears. Jealousy and grief, like whiskey and ginger ale, and I am belligerent from the pain. Oh, I missed the word mix. Let me try that again. Jealousy and grief mix like whiskey and ginger ale, and I am belligerent from the pain. I long for deeply personal conversations to realign our wavelengths. I miss you. Oh, parenting can do that too. Okay, let's see. We've got 2 ands in here. Jealousy and grief mix like whiskey and ginger ale, and I am belligerent from the pain. It doesn't bother me. I'm just going to note that I noticed it, but that could just be how I screen and my brain picked it up. The sentence is fine. We're just going to let it go and keep going. I had already scheduled the neighbor girl to watch the kids on the Saturday following our fight. With a sense of desperation to replenish our souls, we had a beach outing planned. You needed to get your gills wet and feel a barrel under your board. I needed a minute. I found several, like treasures, lining the bottom of the stream. Stream is generous. It's a trickle this time of year, but the water polishes the stones, revealing keepers, and the minutes in time devoted to the search revived my spirit. After you peeled off your wetsuit, we sat side by side on the edge of the van, a quiet distance between us that spoke more than words. We took our conversation on the road, navigating with caution. This and that, and maybe we need to take an honest look despite the pain. If we're completely honest, you ventured, is who we are now and who we aspire to be compatible with each other? Do we meet each other's needs? Sorry, my brain is still trying to catch up. I disassociated for a second and was somewhere out the window, maybe straddling the guardrail or picking the blackberry off the bramble. The seatbelt pressed into my collarbone, and I stole a glance at you in your long-sleeved gray Henley. My breathing slowed with the additional information. You love me, but you aren't in love with me. It faded out a long time ago. We were on drugs back then. Maybe you need alcohol to feel connected, you say with a stab. The double yellow line stretched before us, and you looked over as you taunted. There's nothing here. Go ahead and say it. I didn't say anything. Separation, divorce, an uncoupling. I won't be the one to say those words. Hope waning, we blame each other for morphing into someone new. Someone neither of us knows. While I would guess most couples grow apart gradually, our divide seemed to come on overnight. I pinpoint the moment to our son's birth almost 2 years ago. Okay, I'm going to pause. It's reading really well. There was another sentence back there, I think, where there was a couple of ands, but overall, even with the ands, the way it was written, it worked. So I'm inclined to just move. It's this one right here, I think. This and that, and maybe we need to take an honest look despite the pain. I think it's fine. It's reading well. I love your voice is present. Your blackberries off the bramble. You add a texture to your writing with your descriptions, and so it comes out beautifully. So it's working well so far. Reader thoughts. I'm relating in some way because I find that when raising children, we start to prioritize them. I mean, I feel like personally, I prioritize my children over everything else. And, being responsible can be boring. And so it's easy to see how we start to gain distance between our partners when we're putting other people and their needs ahead of ours, especially when they're really young and they're super dependent on us. I mean, it's our job to look out for them. So, and it can kill your relationship because all of a sudden it's kind of like, I guess it's dull. And so then you start to wonder, you reach a point where you start to wonder, okay, if these people move out, if they grow up and they move out, then we're left alone together anymore. We're left alone together again. And what do we have in common now? Because we're different than who we were when we started the journey. So there's a lot of things to consider, but I think honestly, it's more normal and not necessarily that anything has gone wrong. But those are all just musings. They're completely reader musings. They're kind of like thoughts. Like I know my relationship with my husband is different than where I started, but I still love him. It's not the same as it was when we began, but we were kids and we were out partying together, and we've just kind of transitioned through the different steps of life. And then, we're raising children and prioritizing them. And so I kind of wonder sometimes, I'm like, okay, when these people grow up and move away, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Who are we? What do we still have in common, if anything? And can we meet on a halfway point, which is kind of the whole entire nature of relationships? Do we have any similar interests that we can kind of go back to? And it'll be another journey in its own. So anyway, I don't think that any of this is unusual. Those are all reader thoughts, just as I'm reading and relating, which is good because we wanted your memoir to be relatable, and so it is. And we're going to go right back in here now that we have a little bitty break, so something's happening. Here we go. Labor moved fast after they induced. Getting my epidural was the worst part, and I almost backed out when she missed the first placement. But the next contraction hit with a deep, grinding twist at my midsection. You joined the nurses urging me to breathe slowly, an unwelcome suggestion piercing through my already frayed nerves. A rock in a hard place to face another wave or sit up tall on the edge of the bed, then curl forward at the spine like a cat. My knuckles turned white, clenching into your hand as the pressure grew for a second time. And at last the needle was inserted and the worst was over. Shortly after, my arms pulled our tiny boy up and forward onto my chest. Guttural sobs escaped through bursts of laughter, a confusing whirlwind of commotion and bonding moments. The next 2 hours passed in a sweet blur. I didn't know then that those would be our last tender moments of untainted closeness. Didn't you think it was weird that no one actually checked my milk supply? He latched like a champ right away. I had nursed Ava for 22 months, so when he started crying, no one suspected a thing. After 8 hours of tears, passing our brand new baby off to the curly-haired nurse broke me. She took him to the nursery out of earshot so we could attempt to sleep for an hour. Snores erupted from your bed by the door almost immediately, fueling me with a jealous spite. I wrestled to remove the pillow from behind my head. The bed motor hummed faintly as I lowered the incline and repositioned the flimsy pillow between my knees. Each twist pinned and contorted my gown. Thoughts gnawing at my head prompted another flop. What kind of mom sent her newborn away so soon? How many minutes had it been? Salt of snot and tears mixed with my saliva. With my mind racing, I pressed my eyes shut and my thumb down on the call button, maintaining both as time stood still. I'm going to pause because reader thought, totally relating and completely honest. My first baby, I wanted, I let him go to the nursery a couple times, but I really wanted him with me. My second baby, because I had been so exhausted and remembered being exhausted with my first, and now I knew that I had a toddler and a newborn, I actually wanted her to go to the nursery so that I could rest, because I knew I needed to try to sleep while I was there as much as I could. In an odd twist, they kept bringing her back to me. Like every 15 minutes, they were bringing her back. I was like, what is wrong here? This is so backwards. And I kind of wondered, I kind of wondered the same thing you do. I'm like, yeah, is something wrong with me? But then at the same time, I really wanted to sleep as much as possible before I took home a newborn and had to manage a toddler and a newborn at the same time. So no, reader musing, mom relating, I absolutely wanted her sent to the nursery so that I could sleep. And in a strange twist, they didn't want newborns in the nursery. They wanted them in with their moms. So they kept bringing her back to me. Okay, reader musing aside, we're going to get back to work. Our nurse sat beside me on the bed. Her hands massaged into my back, and she coached me to slow my breathing, loudly syncing her exhale with mine as a guide. Desperate to sleep, but conflicted, I kept thinking, 10 minutes have passed. You only have 50 more minutes before they bring him back. You need to fall asleep now. So relatable. So relatable. Also, noticing adverbs sprinkled throughout here. We've got loudly. I'm just going to point them out really quickly. You could screen for them, and I kind of recommend it because there's been several immediately. And so I faintly, so there's a couple in here. You might just do a little screen for them. Slowly. So there's quite a few. And when there's, more than one or two in a chapter, I'm inclined to draw your attention to them. So I'm going to note that. We're going to keep going. This pressure gave way to a panic attack that woke you from your slumber. How will we manage without help when we get home? I questioned. You skewed my insecurities, holding them against me even to this day. Back home, Edmund's red-in-the-face screams continued, and by his 6th day, we tossed the tubes and syringes. My prolactin levels were mysteriously low, and milk never came in. Breastfeeding was not an option. My grief was all-consuming. I spent much of the first few days sobbing. You turned away in bed, denying me your embrace. This rejection bewildered me, a new kind of loss, and in your mind, it was an abomination that I was so stuck on breastfeeding when we finally had our healthy baby boy at home. Wasn't his health all that mattered? My sadness was a black rain cloud casting shadows on the joy. I took that from you. Hold the phone. Another reader musing. I guess from one mom to another, I'm totally relating a lot to this chapter. So when I brought home my son, who came before my daughter, I had 7 weeks maternity leave home with him, and then I had to go back to work. And I was trying to pump, but I dried up. And at the same time, when I went back to work, everyone there was very cold to me when I came back to work. They just were not, it was like a high school clique, and people were talking about me in the break room, talking about me when I walked by. Everyone was cold shouldering me. I had like 4 employees out of like 35 that came to me privately and said they knew something was going on and that they apologized and didn't want to be a part of it. So I was being bullied in my workplace. I dried up and couldn't nurse my son. And I think that when that combination, or maybe just I think when we have something happen to our bodies, like I dried up, so I feel like the hormones in my body plummeted, and it kind of dropped me into postpartum depression, which was horrible. And I think it's really hard for someone who's not experiencing that and who isn't a woman, not to be cruel to men, but I think it's really hard for someone on the outside of that experience to understand, especially if they haven't been through it. Because I remember I was scared to call my doctor because I was afraid that they would think I was going to hurt my baby and take him away, because that's all you ever hear about in the news when it comes to postpartum is that the mom went crazy and hurt the baby. And so I was scared to call them and ask for help, but I also knew that I did not feel right. So I did, and they were super, super nice, and they got me in right away, and they were actually very helpful, and everything was fine very quickly. But it men do not wake up for the baby. They just don't. They don't wake up for the baby. They don't get up at all hours of the night with them. I mean, if anybody out there listening had the man that got up, then you got something special. And I still feel like my guy is special, but at the same time, they don't hear it. Even now, if a kid's sick, I wake up for it. I respond like some kind of supernatural thread connection to them. And my husband will be beside me snoring. He won't even notice. And I just want to smack him with the pillow and be like, really, dude? Get up and help me. So all of this is very normal, all these feelings from both sides. But that's all reader musings, completely relatable. I'm so right there with the mama in this. We're going to keep going. Bouncing back from this induction into our family was a rough transition. We never gained enough traction to bridge the sickening gap. The former love affair of playfulness and poetry thrives only in my memories. I wonder sometimes if romanticizing my drinking and drug use isn't entirely about the substances, but the deep connection and lust of afternoons on dancing in hotel rooms or splitting a smoke after. Okay, so I'm going to pause. It's a long sentence. It's a long sentence. Like, let's see, we've got two hands is not horrible. It read, but I remember it. I know that while I was reading it, I noted that it was still going and there was more. I wonder sometimes if romanticizing my drinking and drug use isn't entirely about the substances, but the deep connection and lust of afternoons. You know what? I'm just going to note that it's a long sentence, and I'm going to leave it to you to toy with, if you should so choose. And yeah, I'm going to do that because I almost feel like if toying with it, you are going to know better, because it's your experience, how to rework it, if that makes sense to you. So I'm just going to point it out that I noticed it while I was reading, and we're going to keep going. News to me. Edmund's birth doesn't jive with your timeline for our distance. In your eyes, it was more gradual, as is typical of most relationships. How could I have not seen this coming? It's jarring to hear you say the disconnect came years earlier and in pieces. For you, it started with the sacrifice of moving in with me. Unraveling further that in January, I was 5 months sober and 5 weeks pregnant with Eva. I didn't have my legs to stand on. What do I know about being a mom? I hated my mom. And what if I slip? I didn't believe I could live without alcohol. It's not that I craved it. No, I didn't want to drink anymore, but I couldn't imagine my life without it. Convinced I would fail, I was scared to get my hopes up. You couldn't wrap your head around my fears, and I couldn't understand your lack of empathy. What is ludicrous to me is you proposed after these 2 red flags on February 29th, a leap day like no other. Save for the occasional eruption, you masked any seething well. It is so confusing how to hear you say we were growing apart all this time. Our wedding day, a full year and a half later, was nothing short of perfect. The table, set for 25 guests, was lined with glass bottles of homegrown flowers. Your hand enveloped mine to cut into the triple berry pie. Ava, standing in those gold shoes, holding a dahlia flower, as big as her face. Every touch was perfect. So as I'm reading this, I'm like reader musing. So if I'm understanding this correctly, and I'm gonna let the musing out so that you can see if it fits what you were aiming for. You're basically, are you saying that like he already felt like you were drifting apart before you even got married? And then he went on to propose already feeling that way? So odd. If that's what you're saying, which is kind of the gist of what I'm getting when I read this, because like, first of all, a sacrifice of moving in with you, I'm offended for you. Unraveling further that January. So like it sounds like unraveling, and then you were pregnant during the unraveling. So it the impression I'm getting is that, yeah, so what is ludicrous to me is you proposed after these two red flags on February 29th. Okay, so yeah, it looks like he's feeling like things are unraveling before you even got married, and then he went on to propose anyway, which is just absurd. And then I'm like, did you have any idea? Because it sounds like you didn't. It sounds like you didn't. Yeah, how could I not have seen this coming? I mean, well, how could you? He's doing all the things that say he's happy and you're moving forward. I'm so confused. I'll be confused. I'm confused for you. As a reader, my impression is that I am confused too. Not from your writing, but confused for you as to why things went this way. Okay, we're going to keep going. Your marriage vows had a line about your forgiving love that conjures my tears. Pausing. Okay, I think, yep, it's suggesting conjured. And I was going to suggest the same thing. And you've got the little squiggly lines. So I'm wondering if when you view this, because I have, see the G down there, I have Grammarly on here. So I'm wondering if when you view this, if you see these little blue squiggles, or if it's just popping up when I view it because I've got Grammarly in my program. I'm just going to try my little, okay, conjured. There we go. Comment. With both hands, I sweep this sweep. I kind of feel like it's swept. We're past tense. We've been past tense, haven't we? I think we've been past tense, and that's why all of a sudden. All right, let's try this again. Your marriage vows had a line about your forgiving love that conjured my tears. Okay. With both hands, I swept the salty outpour across my cheeks in synchronicity, shaking them out at my ears. The air from the bedroom fan cooled the wet trail they left in their wake. Yeah, so this is reading present tense. I'm pretty sure yeah, look, your hand enveloped mine to cut into the chipleberry pie. Ava, standing in those gold shoes, holding a dahlia flower as big as her face. Every touch was perfect. So you were writing past tense, and in here you switched to present tense. And it's very easy to do when you're in first person, especially if you're enveloped in the story, which yours is not, it's a memoir, but I'm just saying that's typical of writing. Let's see. I want to put a note on here. I don't want to cross it out. Do I just swept? Let's see. I think we switched from past tense to present. Okay. Salty outpour across my cheek. With both hands, I swept the salty outpour across my cheeks in synchronicity, shaking them out at my ears. The air from the bedroom fan cooled the wet trail they left in their wake. Oops. Okay. Vows are a commitment, not an ideal. I'm pausing back, though. I swept the salty outpour across my cheeks in synchronicity. So, synchronicity being, I'm looking it up to be absolutely sure that I'm correct. Synchronicity is the idea that events that appear to be meaningful, related, but have no obvious cause are actually coincidences. Similar thoughts in people who are far apart. I get it, like a syncing, okay? But I'm not getting it in this sentence. Synchronicity to what? Syncing up with what? Your marriage vows had a line about your forgiving love that conjured my tears. With both hands, I swept the salty outpour across my cheeks in synchronicity, shaking them out of my ears. The air from the bedroom fan cooled the wet trail they left in their wake. I don't dislike what it says, but I don't know if I'm getting the synchronicity of it. So I'm kind of questioning that. And I almost wonder. So basically, he had a line that mentioned forgiving love. I almost wonder if you know the exact line, if maybe you quoted it, if that wouldn't. I mean, you don't want to be redundant either. Just musings, just thoughts for consideration. We're going to keep going. Vows are a commitment, not an ideal. Come to find, yours expressed a love you wished you could give me. Of the quality of forgiveness, there is none. So this says expresses, but I'm thinking we're supposed to be in past tense. So I think it should be expressed. I wonder, I looked back here and it was past tense. Yeah, it all was past tense. I think we've switched to present, and I'm not for sure if we're going to switch back. I'm just going to note that I'm thinking it should be expressed, and I'm going to put a question mark because I'm starting to doubt myself. Sometimes I do that when there's a flip-flopping of tense. I start to get lost. Vows are a commitment, not an ideal. Come to find, yours expressed a love you wished you could give me. Of the quality of forgiveness, there is none. So he mentioned forgiveness in his vows about his forgiving love, and yet it seems like he actually didn't have any. He didn't actually have any forgiveness. So it's almost like he wanted something that he actually wasn't capable of. Such a twist. Okay. What did I envision marriage to look like? There was a time you adored me. When I arrived at your house on a Friday evening, you'd swing the door open wearing a Cheshire smile. Your eyes would ignite and devour me from behind the lines of all the smiles that came before. I imagined being married to you would feel like that moment when you opened the door, day in and day out. Your lack of joy nowadays, I assumed, was a result of our move out of state. Relocating was a huge transition. Can you believe we bought a house in a global pandemic and sight unseen? We looked like the Beverly Hillbillies pulling out of my parents' driveway. Caravanning north with Ava buckled up in the back seat and our son, the size of a plum, growing inside me, was a rush. When we passed the Welcome to Oregon, you launched your fist out the window, pumping it up and down in excitement. I honked through tears of joy. Never could I have imagined the twist lurking around the corner. The plan was you'd maintain your own company and the luxury of setting your schedule, but the benefits from that unexpected job offer were too good to be true. Assimilating has been an adjustment and the work culture a shock. Has been. Okay. Has been. Now I feel like I have been prompted not to use has been, but I cannot recall where, and I don't have a flag from Grammarly on it, so it might be fine. But my brain is pausing at it as if it's trying to remember something that I've been told about that combination. Assimilating. I almost wonder if you should use was here in lieu of has been. And I'm going to try it out for you and just see, and then you can decide if you like it or not. I'm not sure if I should leave a note for it or not. Can you let me know if you want me leaving you notes? Because if you don't want me doing that, I won't do it anymore. Really quick. Assimilating was an adjustment and the work culture a shock. I think you might want was. Might want to use was in lieu of has been. Oops. Has been. Maybe. Anyway, food for thought. Let's see. The structure of the routine schedule cripples you. I think we want, well, okay, so presently it still cripples him? Presently? Oh, I'm not sure because are you, okay. The wedding happened in the past, so that should have been past tense. So if we are back into the present, it should be cripples. I'm just going to put a note and say I'm unsure of the tense, and you have these musings, these audio musings to kind of see how I arrived at doubting myself, even when it, like I said, when we have a mid-chapter tense switch, it can become easy for me to get lost, and then I start second guessing everything that I see in the tense, and then I start trying to sort it out as to if you're recalling a memory, that would be past tense, and were you writing in past tense from the beginning, which I kind of went back a paragraph or so and it looked like it was past tense, and then all of a sudden it was present tense. And I think I'm unsure if now we're in the present. Okay, if it currently still cripples him, then I think this is correct. I'm just going to leave it for you to figure out, and we're going to keep going. Otherwise, my brain will keep flip-flopping on it, and we'll be stuck for a good minute, and I'm sure you'd get tired of hearing that. So we're going to go. You hate it, and a grotesque jealousy squirms inside of you. Okay, so see, we're still present. I'm just going to note that. You know what I'm going to do is go back here. Paired with the video, just may want to screen chapter for tense appropriateness and consistency. And I'm going to leave it for you to go back and read it give it a pass, just looking only at the tense to make sure that it's consistent and correct from the way that you want it to be. Sometimes when I'm doing edits, I will literally reread the chapter for each thing separately so that I don't overlook something. Like if I was screening for adverbs, I'll literally give the entire chapter a read, just looking for adverbs, and I won't look at anything else. And then if I'm reading for tense, I'm going to read the entire chapter, keeping tense, past, present, etc. in mind throughout the entire read. So that I'm just to be clear about what I'm recommending. We're going to keep going, and I apologize if I have confused myself and am now confusing you, or if it's just if I'm being ridiculous. And then I'm not going to. What I'll do is I won't continue to bring it up as I continue to read. I'll just highlight if I'm uncertain, like while I'm reading, I'll just go like this to let you know that I kind of noted that I'm not sure, rather than having me just continue to say the same thing over and over again if it's a thing. So we're going to go with that, and I'm going to keep reading. You hate it. So it sounds like it's present anyway. You hate it, and a grotesque jealousy squirms inside of you. This brings us almost full circle, as you want to know what did I do today? What did I contribute on any given day? Are we pulling the cart in the same direction? Baby boomers see us out with the kids and assure us we're in the thick of it. It'll get easier, but the strain is suffocating. Co-sleeping, failed attempts at sleep training, something sticky spilled in the refrigerator, and the garbage disposal is making that sound again. And my heart rate is high. My blood pressure is low. I must have slept funny because my neck hurts and my fingers and toes are tingling. Fatigue sets in, and my diagnosis is too much for our young, already taxed relationship. I'm going to pause. Okay, I think maybe, and I'm not 100% sure, that we might have started a couple of sentences with the word and. And I flip-flop back and forth between this because when I was in high school many moons ago, the teacher was like, do not start sentences with and or the word but. Now, in the years following, I kind of generally followed that rule. And then someone else told me that's not true. And then I've started to see people beginning sentences with and but. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's an old rule, kind of outdated, kind of like when we used word processors and had two spaces after a period, and now we only need one. Or typewriters, you get the point. So this is what we're going to say really quick. You might look through and see, and I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I feel like we had another one back here. What I kind of tell myself is a couple things. I will read through a chapter looking literally for sentences that start with and or but. And when I see them, I will pretend to take out the word and I will read it without the word and. And if it reads just fine without it, I'll go ahead and omit it. Same thing with the word but. I'll allow myself on occasion to start a sentence with and or but I just try to do it sparingly. And I feel like that's a compromise between the old school and the new school. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Let's see. We are down here. The tick bite was in 1996. A lifetime of vague clues. My body is not my own. Lyme disease and Bartonella hide and thrive in my tissues. The low prolactin levels that prevented me from nursing, just one of many things that now make sense. You resent that I am sick. I too resent that I am sick, and I find your reaction disturbing. We wrote our own marriage vows, and while the cliche bit about in sickness and in health wasn't spelled out, I expected it was implied. So, funny thing, a couple musings. One, I also have a chronic illness. It is not Lyme and Bartonella, but I have POTS of dysautonomia. And it kind of really sucks to have a medical or medically disabling disease or ailment or issue that people can't see, because then you're sick and it becomes exhausting to the other person because they can't see it. So it's not like when you don't have a limb, it's not like when you have a extra chromosome. It's not visible. And so very relatable. And then interesting thing about the vows, so you're saying you wrote your own, so you didn't have in sickness and in health. We did not write our own vows. And I can't remember what I said. And it was so funny because I had told the night before at the rehearsal for the guy that was marrying us, I had told him I did not want the obey part in the vows. And then the next day we got married and we said the vows. I don't even remember what they were. And at the end, he's like, see, you didn't even notice that obey part. And I'm like, what? I don't think we actually said it, but I've second guessed myself because it would go against who I am to say that I would obey anyone. So anyway, musings, all reader musings. We're going to keep going. I'm actually super excited for you because it's so relatable that I feel like that's a really good thing for your memoir, that mothers can pick this up and relate. People who are chronically ill can pick this up and relate. People with a history of struggles, very relatable. And I think that's a good thing for you because that was one of the things in the list of goals for a memoir. All right, here we go. Perhaps it's not me at all. Any of this confusing hurt and disconnect. Deep down, I believe you are scared. Your disappointment matches my own. Is it possible that all of this other stuff is a manifestation of your fear and inability to accept the challenges that fell at our feet? Sure, when you have to rush home from work to drop me off at the emergency room or another appointment and cover the time with the kids, it is a lot. I am not going to call it a burden, and I am not suggesting you don't love to be home with our kids, but it is a wrench in our plans and the toll depleting. You feel helpless. I can tell you don't like to be vulnerable, even with me, or maybe especially with me. You confessed once. You have wondered, how much will the illness take of me, my strength, my time, my identity? So relatable. So relatable. I also kind of think, interestingly, in an odd reader musing twist, I don't know, my brain, whatever, I'm just gonna let you have my musings. When we think of men, because you mentioned vulnerability, and so much of men, they're taught not to be vulnerable. They're taught not to cry. They're taught not to push it down, suck it up. Heck, even women are told that. Some parents tell that even to little girls. You need to dry those eyes up, suck it up, get over it. And I have deliberately, when raising both of my children, not done that. I hope to break the mold by not saying those things. But weirdly enough, sometimes I don't know if other people are saying it to them Because like you entrust your children when you send them to school, and they're kind of at the hands of the morals or values or ethics or whatever of each individual teacher, and how they handle them and what they say to them. And part of that is just learning to survive amongst different people with different ideals. But we're kind of like, we have our goals when we set out to parent, and then we have other people who have their own opinions about it, and sometimes our children are in their hands. And so I find that even now, my son, I can't get, he doesn't want to be vulnerable. And I don't know if that's just maybe something they get from their teachers, if we're not telling them to suck it up or dry it up or anything belittling or putting them down or calling them a name or judging their feelings. Why do they still get that way? Maybe it's their peers, like other children who are getting that very thing that I'm not doing, and maybe they put it upon them. I don't know. But and all of that is kind of me thinking about boys, because they grow up to be men. And when you're raising one, it's interesting to kind of contemplate what it is. Like, you're kind of contemplating it too. You're like, I can tell you don't like to be vulnerable, even with me, or maybe especially with me, and you have a question here. So like you're trying to figure it out yourself. So all that is reader musings. That's where my reader brain went while reading this lovely paragraph. And by the way, it's going really well. So we're gonna keep moving. True, your parents fought all the time, but I know you didn't see their split coming. I can't imagine the shock Emily and you felt when your dad remarried shortly after. The new matrimony included a same-age half-sister and a country club membership. Emily was rattled too. When her reaction to the pain landed her in a boarding school for troubled girls, you must have felt so alone. My parents did not get divorced, though I begged my dad to leave for years. I imagined this would bring calm to our chaos, so I had a hard time understanding why your parents' divorce was such a trauma. If it ended fighting, wasn't the split an improvement? There's a shocking statistic, something like 80% of marriages fail. Common, maybe. I see now it is detrimental just the same. The rug was yanked out from under you. You were swapped out, abandoned, and alone. Denny's with your dad every Thursday for dinner was not an improvement. Sometimes I see you getting stuck there, especially when we're in a disagreement. The behavior on the other side of your words fires from the 9-year-old stunted synapses of your brain. Despite the exchange of unkind words and my disappointment for the moments I wanted empathy you couldn't offer, I know it is coming from your inner child. That's a really mature perspective when you're trying to understand where he's coming from. This is you literally, as a reader, I'm getting this is you trying to figure it out. What is going on in that head? Because we all know when we ask, we're probably not going to get an answer, or not an answer that I really do think that we speak different languages and they interpret certain words a different way, and I can never remember which one they prefer. Like, will you or could you? Can you or please? I don't know. Let's see. I still don't know. I still don't know. I want when I ask for help for it to be the way they want to receive it. And the funny thing is right away in my relationship, I knew, I would hope that if you walked by the laundry basket and it was full, you would just, pick it up and take it down and rotate the laundry. But then when that didn't happen, and all of a sudden I say, you literally just walked by that. Well, you didn't ask me to do it. And I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to? Yes. I don't know what you want. You have to tell me. And then I feel like I'm bossing him around because I'm telling him what to do. But apparently sometimes guys want that. They want you to tell them what to do. They want you to tell them. I don't know. Okay. But you are not alone in this trying to figure out what's going on in that other head. Okay. Those are all reader thoughts. Bad, good, young, old. My hard-earned awareness of the complexities of being human reveal that nothing is so cut and dry. You are both 9 and 47. Time and age are fluid, transporting us back and forth on the stream of our life's journey. You were enthralled with sacred geometry and ringing bowls when we met. Above the glass windows of your ocean view room, you had crystals dangling to catch the sun. Stuck to the glass on one side was a sticker from your entrance into the playa at Burning Man. I smiled to remember this photo of you in swim trunks wearing sunglasses at the foot of your bed. A pentagram shadow from the glass star ornament I got at the craft fair, dead center on your chest. Oh, and those stars hanging from the jade plant that you trimmed like a bonsai tree? Your green surfboard hung mounted on the wall, and I don't think that's spelled right. Is it? It's not flagging it as a misspelling, but I am wondering if this is an alternate. I think we're missing letters here. Is it? Are we? Variant, alternative. It looks like it could be an alternate spelling, but I'm inclined to want a U there, but whatever. I'm going to note that I observed and questioned and was curious, and I'm going to keep going. Your green surfboard hung mounted on the wall, and plants grew amongst tomatoes in the backyard. You gravitated to Buddhist philosophies and gifted me poetry books with loving inscriptions on the cover page, always signed with an infinity symbol. During the pandemic, you started buzzing your wavy ginger locks. You sloughed off parts of you. Until today, I questioned if I know you at all. Okay, so I'm wondering if this should be new. No or new? New? No? Well, because we're talking about the present, so that'd be current, that'd be no. Okay, we're going to keep going. I'm not going to keep using tenses. I'm so grateful we sobered up together, because if you hadn't quit, I would have remained your drinking companion. The surfboards are in custom bags in the rafters of the garage, and we left the wonky jade plant in the milder California climate. I still have some crystals in windows around the house, but the refracted prisms are few and far between, and the ringing bowl, it's on the bookshelf in the guest room storing Lowe's receipts. The other day you purchased a large print Bible off Amazon. Maybe we need to take an honest look, despite the pain. If we're completely honest, is who we are now and who we aspire to be compatible with each other? Okay. Oh my goodness. I don't see any, there's nothing wrong. My brain is like processing all of it. I'm kind of thinking, like, as a reader, that spirituality is fluid. So, like, it can be. It just depends on how strict and rigid, or how I'm just not strict and rigid. I'm kind of like, I'm evolving. I feel like I'm constantly evolving as a person. And so I kind of know that some people don't. They just kind of stay one thing. And so, yeah, if one of you changes and the other isn't willing to, do you come to a part where you're no longer compatible? Interesting. We're going to keep going. Back in August of 2019, when I got out of the hospital after my drunken psychiatric hold, I started attending AA meetings again. The cowboy and motorcycle rider who came into the hospital to hold a meeting and share their stories left an imprint of hope. And I didn't have any better ideas. I'm just going to note there's another and, so I would go ahead and screen for and but, just noting it. As is customary, we would conclude each meeting holding hands. Before someone would lead us out with a serenity prayer, they say, okay, so the comma gave me pause right there. So I almost wonder if we want to be without the comma. So like when I read it, I paused because of the comma, but it seemed like the they say belonged with the serenity prayer. So I'm kind of wondering if the comma should be here. I'm going to read it as if the comma is here, and then just I'm going to leave this for your opinion or observation, consideration, whatever. We're going to try it. Before someone would lead us out with the serenity prayer, they say, and a moment of silence for those still suffering inside and outside of these rooms. Okay, that kind of reads incomplete to me. Okay, we're gonna try the whole paragraph again, and I'm gonna leave the comma with where I think it should be, but now I feel like it's incomplete, and we're gonna look at that. As is customary, we would conclude each meeting holding hands. before someone would lead us out with the serenity prayer, they say, and a moment of silence for those still suffering inside and outside of these rooms. Okay. I'm wondering if it should be those rooms or the rooms. I'm not sure. And I'm getting incomplete. Before someone would lead us out with a serenity prayer, they say, what would happen? That you would conclude the meeting holding hands. So is this maybe part of this thought? And then you have a really, really long sentence. So I see why it looks like you tried to break it up into 2 sentences, but in doing so, the second one seems like an incomplete thought. Before someone would lead us out with a serenity prayer, they say, and a moment of silence for those still suffering inside and outside of these rooms. I'm trying to figure out if I'm explaining this right. Before someone would lead us out with a serenity prayer, what would happen? Because it doesn't say what happened. It says it, I think it says it here. So it seems like that is part of that. This is what we're going to go with. I would look at this first and second sentence again, choosing carefully where I'd almost take out the punctuation in them, letting it be one blob thought, and then look over it again, keeping in mind that I want it to be broken up into 2 sentences. But I'm not sure where the break is currently is where we want it to be. Almost like I wasn't sure where the comma should be. I'm inclined to take out my comment too, because my thoughts kind of changed after I read the second sentence with the comma where I thought it might want to be. And now I'm kind of unsure about this whole little combination. I get what you're saying when I read the first line with the second line. And let's do that for a second. Let's let it be a really long sentence for just a minute. As is customary, we would conclude each meeting holding hands before someone would lead us out with the serenity prayer, they say, and a moment of silence for those still suffering inside and outside of these rooms. I wonder if you could take out the they say part and go without it. It'll still be a long sentence though, so I'd still be looking to break it up. As is customary, we would conclude each meeting holding hands before someone would lead us out with a serenity prayer and a moment of silence for those still suffering. You know what I would do? I'd probably, my recommendation is going to be to omit they say and then omit inside and outside of these rooms. I like the context of it. I like what it says, but I think you're going to be fine without it. It's one of those things that I'd let go of, even though I really like it. But obviously it's up to you. And if you don't like that suggestion, I still suggest removing the punctuation and then just kind of looking at the whole thing again. We're going to keep going. About a month sober, I couldn't believe it when the word me escaped my mouth. Me. That's me. I've been coming and I'm sober, but I am still suffering. There in front of a dozen people, I dropped to my knees crying, further delaying the prayer. Okay, I needed a pause between crying and further. That throws a third comma in there. But I wanted it. I'm going to read it as though the comma is there. There, in front of a dozen people, I dropped to my knees, crying, further delaying the prayer. I almost wonder if we need this comma. There, in front of a dozen people, I dropped to my knees, crying, further delaying the prayer. Yeah, okay, so if I read it that way, I'm reading it as though this comma is not there. I'm reading it as though there is a comma here and a comma here. There, in front of a dozen people, I dropped to my knees, crying, further delaying the prayer. Okay, I'm just going to leave you with that, and I'm going to keep going. I was suffering. Today, I struggle, and there is a difference. It's lonely missing you, and I hate that we are facing hardships. Of course, I would prefer if my schedule wasn't bookmarked with doctor appointments, and if money was such that getting a babysitter for a few hours wasn't a source of stress. Happy endings are subjective, love is complicated, and I have remained sober. The blessings are hidden in the quality of my problems today. My past dilemmas play in front of me like a video reel, trading a homeless guy toothpaste and razors for meth to get loaded. Walking home through the bad part of town at 3 in the morning or any occasion of jeopardizing my safety, as I did time and time again. I had a 41-quart plastic tub under my bed. Inside there was 3 years' worth of unopened mail. My stomach flopped every time an unidentified number flashed across my screen. Pitiful to see myself hungover, out of cigarettes, rifling through the ashtray for a refry, or worse, wiggling my fingers down the back of my throat to make myself throw up so I could continue drinking. Stringing lies together to explain my broken hand or chipped tooth, lies to excuse my absences or delay consequences. These problems and more were all mine, and they robbed me of my spirit. Let's see. My past dilemmas play in front of me like a video reel, trading... Okay, something here, I felt like I almost messed up the line. My past dilemmas play in front of me like a video reel, trading a homeless guy toothpaste and razors. I guess it reads fine. I think I got it out fine, but when I did it, I feel like I almost misread it. Maybe I didn't. Trading a homeless guy toothpaste and razors. I think it's okay. I noticed it when I was reading that there was something that I almost messed up, but I didn't, so I guess it's okay. We're just going to keep going. Let's see. Absorbing the heartbreak that comes with growing apart from the love of my life and raising children with unruly hair and thirsty hearts is a great privilege. Sometimes I still can't believe my series of blessings, our blessings, that have led to the caliber and quality of our relatable, tragic, ordinary, extraordinary problems today. With all these complexities and contradictions, the facts and the feelings, I am sure of only 3 things. Sometimes no action is the best action. I won't pick up a drink today, and somehow whatever happens, everything is going to be okay. I believe this. Okay, that is a beautiful ending to this chapter. I'm going to point out the little and then I'm going to tell you that I almost cried. It's absolutely beautiful. So, yeah. Good job. I'm going to swallow the lump in my throat and tell you good job one more time. And then I'm going to thank everyone who is with us today, and I will see you guys next time on Mystery Red Reads.